This AI SDR just bet my top performing sales rep of all time. And today I'm going to show you exactly what an SDR does, a sales development representative. How much does it cost to set up your own AI SDR that you own 100%? Take you through the 3 levels of building your own AI SDR, from the beginner workflows all the way to the advanced workflows, step by step. Why should you listen to me? Well, I've been building businesses for the last 20 years, including exits to ClassPass, an American billion-dollar company. I've started Scandinavia's leading co-working house, which is very profitable. And for the last 5 years, I've been building multiple online ventures that are all profitable and growing 6 figures a month. I've run over 25 AI SDR campaigns just in the last 3 months with very interesting results, some failures, some great successes. For instance, I ran an AI SDR campaign for my commissary kitchens that I own over here called Dark Edition, and we filled 10 kitchens in 1 week with $25 investment that gave us $8,000 back in recurring revenue. I've also made a lot of mistakes about how not to do SDR campaigns, which I'm going to cover at the end of this video. So stick around so you know how to get your business supercharged with AI SDR workflows that not just finds prospects for you, but outreaches for them, books meetings on your behalf so that you can just show up and do what you're good at, which is to close your business and deliver super high value. Let's get started. If you're like me and you browse Facebook, you must be getting slammed by ads that scream, "We'll fill your calendar with qualified meetings so you don't pay anything." Or there's a PDF for $37 that solves all your problems seemingly. I just feel overwhelmed when I see ads like this. And my strategy to cope with this overwhelm is to figure out my own path that I own to 100%. You might call it dumb because it takes a little bit more time, but I feel I master the situation better when I do it this way. So if you're watching this video, by the end of this video, you'll have your own workflows that you own to 100% so you can scale your business without being dependent on an agency. So no coding experience needed, just basic business sense and a good understanding of who your prospects are is all that you need today to use AI to start building your sales. What is an SDR and why do most traditional SDR setups fall short? Let's look at the status quo today. So an SDR stands for Sales Development Representative. They start by prospecting. That is to figure out where are your prospects, where are your potential customers, where are your leads. They typically have an ICP or your ideal customer profile. If you've not defined that, that's where you start. You break them into niches or campaigns and then work with marketing to get in front of them. Sometimes you just don't have marketing budgets, so you start prospecting by being in forums like Reddit forums or communities or groups, or maybe there's offline events or a partner that owns a large part of your prospect list. So you start working with them to figure out how can you get in front of your prospects, right? But what an SDR does simply starts making a list of all your potential prospects and why they are on that list. So this is called list building or prospecting. That's where you typically start. Now this list can come in, you can get this list because you've done marketing activities, and then you have the inbound list, or you don't know these people, they don't know who you are, and then you have the cold outbound list. These are people that you want to outreach to over time, right? So you have the inbound and the outbound, and you have a list or a CRM or a database where you have all this data. The second thing that an SDR does is to qualify. So they qualify by doing very basic research to understand whether the people on your list are actually a fit to your business, because you don't want to be reaching out and spending resources on people that might never buy from you, right? Third thing that an AI SDR or that an SDR does is outreach. So this could be cold outreach, it could be cold calling, it could be emailing, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Instagram, whichever channels, probably multiple channels. They're trying to figure out how do I get these people into the product or into your business's universe, right? So this is very simple outreach. You can again do this through different channels, or you're doing it offline or online, doesn't matter, but you're really getting in front of your prospects, right? And then the main goal of your SDR is to book meetings. So you want to coordinate with either if you have a sales team or you're doing both, if you're a solo founder, you're doing both typically. You want to book times and you want to make sure that, this prospect that showed interest in whatever you're trying to sell is interested in actually exploring this further. And then there's some kind of CRM management, especially if you're a B2B SaaS and you're growing. You need to make sure that you have a pretty decent CRM with all the data. So the SDR typically helps out over here. And finally, they work very closely with the marketing team, if you have that, to help in demand generation. Because at the end of the day, you have, as I mentioned, outbound and inbound lists. So lists where people are warm and people are cold. And more warmer they are, the better your job is as an SDR, right? Because a lot of SDRs get a bonus. So if you look at the US, you have a salary of about $50,000 to $25,000 a year. If you work for well-funded startups, it's probably on the higher end. If you work for smaller businesses, it's probably on the lower end. You also have agencies doing things like fixing meetings on your behalf, and they typically work on pay per performance. But my view is that if you're a business that is serious about growing with sales, you want to own large parts of that in-house, because you want to have insights into your market, into your prospect, and just giving away that to an agency, it might not be a very smart, viable strategy long term. But if you're just getting your ground started and you have enough going on with your product and you've not figured things out on other parts of your business, it's a shortcut to getting into your market. So it depends on where you are. In Sweden, where I live, the average SDR salary is about 320,000 crowns a year. So in my previous business, I used to run a consulting outfit between 2015 and 2020. We sold that in 2020, just before COVID. And I used to have a part-time SDR that used to build lists for me and used to outreach for me, where he doesn't do hard sales. He talks more about he's trying to build a relationship and introducing our product or our category gently. And if there's interest, then he used to invite them into an event that we used to run. So our funnel used to be build a leads list, do a part-time outreach, get us into their world, then invite them for a free event that we used to run every month, and then at the event is where the conversion happens, right? So that was our process, and we used to pay him, I think, about $2,500 a month for 2 days of work, and that was pretty useful because we could see who our prospects are. He used to break them down into different niches and help us really figure out how to get into the market here and how to really go after prospects that have the highest probability of converting. So if you look at the challenges with the traditional SDR setup today, like most companies have, either you don't have an SDR setup and you're doing it haphazard, and that's a mistake too. But assuming that you're doing some kind of a process of prospecting and outreach, so a lot of SDRs are very busy but not value adding, in the sense that there's a lot of repetitive work, right? So there's repetitive low leverage work, which obviously is boring after a while, that the quality starts going down, and you're basically filling your time to do research that feels busy, but is not really value adding. So in our example, in this case, our old SDR, he used to come up with research like, what are the innovation activities that they did over the last 10 years? We were selling innovation consulting, we were selling digitalization and how to be more digital as a traditional business. And that was not very interesting, but it took a lot of time and it felt valuable. But 6 months later, we realized that data had no correlation to whether they bought or not, right? So it was more like public signals that was more interesting. Were they having, if they were publicly listed, what happens if the stock market goes down? How does it affect, management pressure if they've been hammered in the stock market for 3 quarters in a row? They're not going to spend any money on innovation, versus if their entire category is growing and this Fortune 500 business is growing well, and they're just trying to figure out their next PR stunt, then innovation might work really well for them. So it kind of depends on other factors. So it's very easy to get stuck in busy work that feels valuable but is not valuable. So these three are sort of related, where you're doing research that is not very useful or very tailored. You're not diligent in follow-ups because it's a human after all, and you make mistakes. And there's obviously some training and attrition involved when you work with humans, right? So you have to train somebody about your business, about your product, about who your prospects are. Maybe they've never worked in your industry, and there's obviously attrition, meaning people leave, people get sick, and you need to fill that role. Bear in mind also that if you're growing fast, or if you have intentions of growing fast, adding people is usually the bottleneck. So that's a challenge too, right? Now, let's introduce the world of AI SDR. So an AI SDR is like a superhero that doesn't have those challenges, but he has frailties. So there are things that an AI SDR doesn't do well today as of September 2025. And I can tell you with learned mistakes that you don't want to make those mistakes, which I'm going to cover towards the end of this video. But if you look at the AI SDR's benefits, you obviously have somebody that's working 24/7. It's 1/10 or 1/20th the price. It's going to get cheaper. It's personalized, meaning you can really do tailored research that is very personal, and you can change triggers really fast. So for instance, in my old business, when we were doing consulting, if I had to get the SDR to go back and redo research of 30, 40, 50 companies, we lost another 2.5 weeks, because he had to redo the triggers. He had to go and Google research and do basic desktop research, which we used to do back before AI. And that took a lot of time because it was manual sorting of data. Now, you can do that in a whim with AI. You just change your prompts and it's done in a matter of minutes, right? So you have this personal way to add research, which can change and be dynamic as you learn more about your business. You can also have highly scalable AI SDRs, right? To add more into your AI SDR work, you're just basically adding more compute, which is available for a few cents, right? So the scalability is fantastic. You can test fast. So one of the campaigns I did was to help my Finnish friend who runs a business with an infrastructure to see if they can launch in the UK. And that campaign gave us no results, which is one of the mistakes I'm going to talk about. But you can indeed test fast if this offer, your product, and your go-to-market in a new market is actually working or not. And finally, an AI SDR is very diligent. It never misses balls, right? You don't have to worry that the task is not done. On the other hand, you might have to worry that the task is wrongly done or poorly done sometimes, which I'm going to cover again in the mistakes, but it does do the task. So it's really about how do you fine tune. So not all is peachy, right? So if you look at the AI SDR, there's definitely 4 mistakes that I've learned. The first one being tonality. So it's very easy that the AI starts writing and doing outreach that feels like spam. It feels, when you look at the first set of results, it feels pretty interesting. But as you read the 100th and the 500th and the 1000th output from the AI, you realize that there's a lot of fluff. So you really want to tailor make what is the message being sent. And my advice to you, if you're just getting started, to avoid getting into the AI fluff filter, is to really hard code the output and really have few personalization attributes. So what I mean by that is that if, let's say, you're writing an email, you just maybe want to write the first opening sentence with AI, and that's maybe you cap it at 12 words, right? And then the rest of the body is the same, and maybe the last call to action can be slightly different, which I'm going to show you how to do. So literally you have controlled variables that make sure that the AI output is very controlled, meaning there's a body that is the same, the opening and the closing is just different. Okay. The second thing is it's data dependent. So what I mean by that is that if you feed it shit data about your business, it's going to come up with shit, right? So what I try to do is to make sure that my database or my Google Drive or wherever your data is well organized, so the AI really understands what is the business, who is the prospect, what are their needs, what are their fears, what is the value we're trying to provide, and so on. So you really want to make sure that data is really well done. Otherwise, you're not going to get good outputs. There's obviously hallucinations, especially if you're doing voice outbound. I would recommend you not to do voice outbound because it's not there with cold calling yet. But if you're doing warm inbound, it's much better, but still there are hallucinations, meaning that it comes up with weird sentences that has got nothing to do with the business or the prospect. This is something that can happen, which can be scary if you have a large brand. So that's why there's a clear gap between enterprise adoption and user adoption when it comes to sales, because it's not there yet. And finally, you need to have constant fine tuning, because you realize that even if 1,000 outputs are great, the 1,005th output might be shit, so you need to really constantly fine tune. So there is scalability, but don't assume that you're just going to set it and forget it, because that's not how it is today, at least if you're serious about the outputs, or if you're serious about every message landing well. So I would really urge you to focus on quality over quantity and really get the basics right before you start scaling. And finally, I think to get the AI SDR set up right, you need to have the human in the loop. So if you see any other guru that is saying, run away, that is saying that you can have a completely automated system end to end. It's booking meetings on autopilot. It costs less than a cup of coffee a day. You just show up and you book meetings and you're on the beach chilling and there's just money rolling in. Just run away. That's so far away from reality. Business is hard. AI makes it easier, but you still need a human in the loop. Okay. So do me a favor, and if somebody asks you to, promises you this paradise, just know that you have to run away from that person. Okay. Now let's go through the different levels of AI SDR, and what I'm going to do is to actually walk you through step by step through my own workflows and show you how I built them. And I'm going to, as I mentioned, divide into level 1, level 2, level 3, and I'm going to tell you how can you qualify yourself where you are. Maybe you're already an intermediate because you know who your ICPs are and so on, or maybe you just need to start from starter. So I'm going to do that in the next section of the video. Let's go. Okay, so you're going to find all the workflows I'm going to show you in the next part of the video over here in my Gumroad. So you're going to see I have the outbound starter kit, I have the intermediate kit, I have the advanced kit, I have a few other things over here. It's all priced at $0, which means it's donation based. You can put it at $0. You can put it, if you want to support my work, I'm happy if you donate something, because I spend a lot of time doing these workflows and testing them in reality. So what I'm going to do is walk you through as if I'm going to download this for the first time. So in this case, I'm just going to put it as 0. What you can see over here is you can see, you have what do you need, right? You need an Airtable, you need n8n, which is my favorite tool for building automations, and OpenAI or any kind of GPT. And this is the easiest cold email outbound starter kit I have. And you also have a YouTube tutorial where I walk you through this step by step, but in much more detail than what I'm going to do today. But you're going to get a gist of how this works. So you're going to add this to cart. And then obviously, I'm just going to put my name in here, 0, and then get, right? Once you do that, you're going to see that you come into the page where you have the entire workflows. Here you can see what is included. I have the complete tutorial. You can duplicate the Airtable base over here. And what you need to do is also written here, right? You have to change your API key. You need to know how to do the basic website scraping. If you want to do any LinkedIn scraping, I show you how. And I use a tool called Apify over here, which I'll again show you. So you have all the instructions over here. Okay, now what I would do is to click on this JSON file, and I would just start with a website. You see there's level 1 LinkedIn and level 1 website. Let me just explain what the difference is over here. So when it comes to the website, basically your prospects have a website and you want to crawl that data to figure out what is happening in their world. So if you look at a website, depending on the niche you're in, it could just be a static website that they don't update as often. They have some testimonials, for instance, and maybe that's it, and that's enough for you to use in your outbound to show that you've done research. Or you want to really look at their website to find their mission, find their positioning, find their products, and then you want to get the AI to tell you which is the most relevant based on what you're offering, right? So you can really customize just a website level scraping. The same goes with LinkedIn. Here you can customize, what kind of data do you want? Do you want everything about their company? Do you want everything about the company and the person, what they've posted, all their past jobs, how long have they been at their work? So it kind of depends on how you're doing your sales. If it's company dependent, I just go with the website. If it's completely title dependent, you're selling to a medium-sized company and you need to go after a certain title, I'd go after LinkedIn, right? So let me just walk you through. So what you do is click on download. And once you've clicked on download, you're going to come to n8n, which is, again, you can use the free trial, free account to get started. You also have a link below for my own affiliate link over here. If you want to use that, I'd be thankful if you use that. It supports my work. Then you click on create workflow. And once you do that, you're going to click on these 3 dots over here and you're going to import from file. And then in this case, you have it downloaded in your computer and you import it, right? So let me just show you over here. I'm going to take the website JSON and I'm going to download it. I've downloaded it now. I'm going to upload it. I'm going to upload it from here. So there you go. And now you have my entire workflow done, right? And the only thing you need to do is to come back here and follow the instructions, which is, okay, I need to change my API key for OpenAI. There are lots of tutorials on how to do that. I'm not going to go into those details, but basically you need to find data about the tools and put them in here. Okay, so that's going to take you about 20 minutes. And to be honest, if you're not prepared to do that, then either you should ask for help and pay for it, or you should not do it. Okay, so anyway, let's get into the details over here. So where it all starts is a webhook. A webhook is simply a connection between 2 different tools. In this case, what this workflow does, which is the basic level workflow, it looks complicated because it has a lot of nodes, but don't worry, right? So don't worry about the length of the nodes right now. What you're worrying about is the quality, and what you really need to think about before you get into the workflows is to understand what data is most important for you to make your sale work, right? Now, so you have the webhook, and then what it does is to get the data. This connects n8n and Airtable. That's what this does. And then you're going to get that data from Airtable. You're going to clean that data up so you get only the most important data. And then you're going to go into their website and scrape it. And then what you do from here is you get different URLs, right? Let's say your website has 10 different subpages. You're going to make them into one, and then you're going to get AI to tell you, out of these, based on what I run as a business, tell me the most valuable page that is the most relevant for me. And then you get that, you're going to do a deeper scrape over there, and then you're going to get all these different data. You're going to remove all the junk that comes out of scraping, and you're going to clean it up. And once you clean it up, you're going to basically look at, okay, what is this company's mission? What do they offer in terms of products? what is their differentiation compared to the rest of the market, what testimonials do they have, and then you have everything sort of nicely cleaned up in a code base, and from here you'd write an email. And from that email, you save it back into your Airtable. So all of a sudden, what has happened is that you take your prospect list, you look at their website, you analyze it, you look for fit based on what you provide and what the business operates in. And then you write a perfect email, which is hard-coded largely, and then that is saved in your Airtable. Okay. So let me show you an actual example over here. So here, in this case, this is my Airtable, right? And what happens when I connect my webhook with my Airtable is that you're going to start the workflow by clicking on this tick box and having a status that says yet to be enriched. That's at least how I've structured it. So if you're going to use my exact process, I recommend you to follow my YouTube tutorials, about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You're going to get detailed explanations on how you can connect every step of this workflow. But basically, you start the workflow by changing these two parameters, and then you get all the data over here. Now, one thing I've started doing recently is to also understand what email provider they have. So in this case, you can do that through a simple MX lookup, which tells me if they're on Outlook or on Gmail. And if they're on Outlook, I have a very different sending strategy compared to Gmail if you're using cold outbound email, because Outlook has very high spam filters these days compared to Gmail. Now you can also see they have time at company. So in this case, this was a campaign that was focused on people that changed jobs recently. That was the starting point of the ICP. So you can see that these people changed their jobs recently, right? But you get that date. How long have they been, or which month did they start? This says 1st March, but they started in the month of March, right? Then you also have a clean company name, which the AI outputs. So you don't want to be writing to, in this case, Balfour BTPP LLC, right? Nobody writes like that as a human being. So you want to have it cleaned up. You get different industries, and then you get different LinkedIn profiles. And then from here, you can, you have the email copy and you have the follow-ups as well, which this simple workflow writes for you. So just one very simple workflow, if you come back to what an AI SDR does, is to actually give you a list, right? So if they give you a prospected list, they qualify, they do your outreach, and they book meetings, right? So these 4 are now done with the click of a button. Now you can ask me, where did I get this list from? And the answer to that is different sources, right? Depending on your niche. So some use Apollo.io, which is a great place to start. So that's one of the largest databases in the world where you can find your leads and filter and then download them. You pay for it, or you can use manual lead sources. So if you go to Upwork and search for lead generation or lead sourcing or, lead researcher, you will find lots of people that provide, 100 leads at $40, right? And the most important thing when you get these leads list is to actually make sure that the emails are valid. So you want to use a third-party tool to make sure the emails are valid before you start contacting them. Because I'll show you an actual example. I completely forgot this step, and you can see over here on my Instantly, which is where I send my campaigns from, I got a bounce rate, which was too high, which means the campaign is not working. So when the emails are wrong and the emails start bouncing, the entire campaign is affected. So now all of a sudden the open rates are low, the click-through rates are low, the reply rates are low, you've just burnt a lot of leads, right? So you want to make sure there are no bounces. So when you buy leads or when you get leads from Apollo, you want to use a third-party software to safe bounce. If you Google, email verification tools, you get tons, and most of them are free. Some you pay $5 and it's worth it. So all of a sudden you have a tool that can make sure that the emails are actually valid. Okay. Now, so what you have is a level 1 workflow where the output is email copy that feels very human and well written, right? So let me show you an example over here. So the example over here is I have 2 subject lines because I can A/B test subject lines, which is the most important part of your open rate. And in this case, it says, Paul, congrats on your new role at Castle, exciting times indeed. And then this part of the text is the same. So are you frustrated with chasing updates and flying blind? And then there's one sentence about what this does. And then there's some kind of a funny CTA, which is, I know your calendar is probably harder to get into than Soho House right now, but can set you up with a free trial. So this was the CTA. This is a dynamic CTA. This part is dynamic, and so is this part over here. Okay, so the rest, these 2 sentences are fixed, right? Now, this is an example of a very simple workflow. Now, you can also see over here, I have a column called, is it a champion, user or a decision maker. And if you're selling complex SaaS tools, you want to know, are you speaking to a user of the tool? Are you speaking to an economic decision maker? Are you speaking to a champion? And so on, right? So this is more of the intermediate workflow where you can actually start putting in nodes that help you understand who you're speaking to and then tailor the message based on that. So I'm going to cover that in the next part of the video. Okay, so to summarize the outbound basic workflow, you can download it from here. You have a tutorial that is step-by-step over here, and you can go through how to duplicate and add your own webhook and get started with the whole workflow. The only thing you need to do is to come in here and basically change a little bit of the prompt. So over here you can come in and say, this is what I do, so help me understand what customer success case studies can I use over here. Or over here you would obviously come and change the copy of the email, but here's all the insights, and here's all the benefits that we have, that my product or my category provides. Based on this, help me write an email, right? So the prompt is where you would change, but the logic, the glue is already done for you. You can literally copy paste this and you're ready to go, right? So what you need to get started over here is an Apollo subscription or some kind of a leads list. Let's say that costs about $100 for you to get started, to get 500 to 1,000 leads, which is a very good start. You want your OpenAI, some kind of an API key, and that costs maybe $10 to get started. So you have a $10 credit subscription, off you go. So far you've spent about $110. Then you have Airtable, that's free to get started. You have API if you want to use that for really deeper scraping, which I've not covered over here, but that's another $45, but you don't need that to get started with just this basic this basic scraping workflow over here. So for $110, let me see if I'm missing anything else over here. And of course, you need to know how to send this, and you can start by sending it manually. I'd probably recommend a tool like Instantly that costs $40 a month because it does the sending for you. And again, it's very straightforward to use. So all the data from Airtable is automatically loaded into Instantly, and you can send it. Again, I covered this in detail, how you set it up. It's just 2 nodes and you're ready to go. So this again cost another $40. So you're at $150. All of a sudden, you have a full sales machine ready to start booking meetings for you, right? And this is something you control. Obviously, you need to put in about 2 to 3 hours to get this set up. But once you've set it up, you can start coming back to this once a day, looking at fine-tuning the output. And as part of your morning routine, while you're having your coffee, you're going to sip your coffee, you're going to click on play, you're going to see all the outputs over here on Airtable. You're going to come and see, is this quality good? And if it's not, you'd go back and see what can I change, or you can just change it obviously right here, and then you have the text, right? So it's done the research for you. It's found out who the person is. It's found out more information about their website. It's given you all as a nice, beautiful summary here, which means that when you have a meeting with a person, right, you can simply show up. So I'll give you an example over here. In this case over here, so one of the things that you want to have is also be well prepared for the meetings that eventually happen when you get people booking in your calendar. And over here, the AI has already done the research for you, right? So here you can see that in this case, the name of the program, the course is already written over here for you. You have data on specific information that you ask as part of your workflow here. So this workflow has got you set up for both reaching out to your customers or your prospects, getting them into your calendar, or getting the conversation going. And once you have them in your calendar, it's already done the research for you, which means you just show up with your Airtable and you know what you need to talk about, right? Which is fantastic. It saves a lot of time, a lot of meetings, a lot of headache. Okay, so that's the starter workflow. Now let's get into the intermediate workflow. So again, the intermediate workflow, you're going to find it in my Gumroad over here. I'm going to have this Gumroad for a while. I don't know for how long, but use it while it's there. So for the intermediate outbound, obviously we're going to take it up a notch. And when I say intermediate, what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out signals, whether the prospect that you're trying to reach out to is actually ready to engage with the category that you belong to, right? So how can you know for sure that the person that you're trying to reach out to has actually the need that you try to solve? And today, depending on your niche, you can find certain parts of, you can find clues online. And that's really what this intermediate workflow does on a basic level. So over here, what we're going to do is, again, it's the same setup. You're going to use n8n. You're going to look at company website and look at what we can find from there. We're going to find mission, offering, differentiation. So it's built on the basic, the beginner workflow. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to work through a little bit more about signal finding. So let me walk you through that. I'm going to do the same thing here. You can obviously name a price. You can add to cart. And once you do that, you You basically write your name, it's 0, and then you get it, right? And once you have this, again, you're going to get to a place where you have all the instructions. So you have a YouTube video as well, which is a tutorial of how to use just this workflow, and you can go in detail. I've also given you all the codes and everything you need, right? So okay, let's go into the level 2 enrichment. So again, you download this, you get it over here, and then you would upload this over here into your workflow over here, right? So let's see where this goes. Yeah, there you go. So obviously I've added it to the same workflow, but you get the idea. Here you can see that I do a few things, right? So first of all, the first thing I do is to work with LinkedIn. Now LinkedIn is a pretty good source, especially company LinkedIn, if they're active on company LinkedIn. Not many companies are, but if they are, it's a fantastic place to start. So I get the data from LinkedIn company. I do the same thing with an OpenAI node, where I look at whether, what is the, what are they talking about, right? What can I infer from this, right? And then I clean the company name. As I said, it's important that you don't sound like a robot saying LLC or Inc. or things like that, which is not very human. And then what I do from there is to scrape the lead LinkedIn. Okay. Now in this case, I'm trying to reach out to a person. At the end of the day, emails or outreaches between people to people, and more you know about the person you're reaching out to, the better, right? So here I'm reaching out via LinkedIn, and then I clean that up in a code. And this is where I really work with signal finding, and I use a tool called Perplexity. Perplexity is one of the best search engine tools out there, and it gives you answers really fast, because what it does is it summarizes. It's like Google 3.0 or Google on steroids, right? It summarizes all the data, gives you the perfect answer, and also gives you all the sources. I call this the Perplexity magic tool, okay? And in this case, I use a simple API call. You need to have an API key to Perplexity. Obviously, it costs some money to use it, but it's, again, we're speaking pennies on the dollar here. And here is where I really get into the signal finding, which makes this an intermediate workflow, in my opinion. So in this case, this is for a friend of mine who has a company in the infrastructure industry. So what I want to know is to find information about the infrastructure projects that this person is personally involved in. And Perplexity is great at finding data like this. So what it does is it looks at all the web sources, it looks at press releases, it looks at all the company data, and tells you, okay, this Daniel over here that's working in this company, what are the projects he's most likely working on, right? Then I also give it things like identify if this is very technical, which obviously you can change it to your niche. But here I say, identify if this person works in things like machine control or drone operations, because that's a big signal for the prospect, in this case, for my friend's company, to know if this person would get what they are selling. A lot of times when you're working with sales and B2B, they don't even understand what you're trying to sell. And sometimes you're speaking to the wrong people, right? So you want to know that, okay, if this person has machine control and drone operations, they definitely love our product. That was their sales intelligence, which we could bake in here. And if mission control or drone related expertise is mentioned, include that insight prominently, right? So I give it a prompt where the idea of this prompt is to give me intel whether the person I'm reaching out to, based on the lead LinkedIn, based on everything that I've scraped from the LinkedIn, everything I've scraped from their website, everything I've scraped from their company LinkedIn, based on all this data, tell me, and go out and find more things out there, tell me if these guys passed my filter test over here. And if it does, you update that in the Airtable, and then this is where I start writing the emails. Obviously, you can connect this to different prompts to do LinkedIn outreach, messenger outreach, and so on. But I'm just keeping it simple for now, because email still does a very good job if you set it up right. So here I do the first email and the follow-ups, and I log all of this back in Airtable. So this is an intermediate follow-up where the whole idea is to use Perplexity to get into the details of whether this person that you're reaching out to qualifies according to your criteria, and if so, what is the score or what is the probability they do, and based on that, write the email, right? Again, I use the same first principles. Don't let the AI write the whole email. Let the AI write the first and the last sentence and hard code the rest so you get started. Otherwise, it can hallucinate. So this is the intermediate workflow. Again, you'll find all the details over here, including my complete, tool stack over here. So here, the main thing over here is that we are adding API, which we don't need to do in the basic workflow. So we're adding API to get much more data from scraping the lead LinkedIn. I just have to warn you that you have to be careful when you're using API with LinkedIn, because LinkedIn can shadow ban your account if you pull a lot of data. So you need to add your session cookies which again I explain how in the explanation video, which I link up here, so you have that. But if you add your session cookies, just be careful. I'd recommend you to create a new LinkedIn account that is not related to your main LinkedIn account, and then use the cookies from there, because even if that account gets banned, you don't lose your actual account, right? So this is the intermediate workflow. Again, there's a complete end-to-end video over here. Okay. Now, before we finish, let's go into the advanced workflow, and I'll also want to walk you through the mistakes that I see people make all the time. So stay tuned. Let's go into the advanced workflow. Okay, so the advanced workflow is also found over here. So you click on Outbound Advanced Full POV System. You click on, you put a price. Obviously, it's not 0. Hopefully, it's a little bit more because you like what you're seeing here. And then if you do that, go on there. You click on Get. And here again, you get the full point of view. So you just download it. I'm going to link the video over here. You have the complete YouTube video. You have the Airtable database. There's a little bit more going on over here. So let's look at that together. So I'm going to import this over here. Import from file. Perfect. So this is the level 3 full point of view. So exciting. This is a little complicated, but it's a very robust workflow. Okay. So here, what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of things in parallel, and I'm adding more nodes. Okay, so let's walk this through step by step. It feels complicated, but bear with me. You can just go one node at a time, take a cup of coffee, cup of tea, and keep going to the right, and you'll be fine, because the code logic is there, and it won't error as long as you put in the API key right, and as long as you connect your Airtable. There's no error possibility. It's more whether this is needed for you. So it's more a business question than a technical question. Okay. Now again, it all starts with a webhook. It's connected to an Airtable. This is an HTTP request to their website. Again, we do company scraping on LinkedIn. We get data from their website and from their LinkedIn. We get all this merged. We clean this up because there's a lot of scrap usually especially when you scrape a company website. You don't need all that data, right? And then you clean it up. You update it on an Airtable. Then you scrape the person's LinkedIn again, which we did in the intermediate already. And then you're streaming the input for Perplexity, which is, again, we did that already. So this is really building up on the intermediate model, right? Now, what we do from here is we're going to do 3 types of signal collection. We're going to collect human signals, industry signals, and competitor signals. So I'm calling this the 360 point of view. So the 360 point of view is to put the person you're talking to in the center and understand everything going on in his or her life. Put the company in the center and understand everything going on in that company's industry, competition, their own internal stuff, and industry as a whole, the macro as a whole. And you're going to construct a complete point of view of both these actors, which makes you really smart, especially if you're going to a new industry, or if you're going to a new market, or if you're trying to crack in a new subcategory. You need this data to start knowing, how to penetrate the market, right? So all this becomes really important. So we start with the human node. You get that human point of view. You clean that. You put that in the human, collection in the Airtable. Then you do the same for the industry analysis. Again, I use Perplexity. It's a little bit more expensive if you use the Sonar Pro, but it's worth it if you're especially selling high ticket prices. Like if you're selling a SaaS that has long lifetime value or pretty high first ticket, it's completely worth it. So then you'd get industry signals from Perplexity, and from there you'd update this again. You'd update your Airtable, and then this is where I love Perplexity even more, because you can look at timing. So in this case, I'm asking Perplexity to tell me, this is what I do. This is all the data I've collected. Walk me through what is the timing score that this person in this company would be interested in my services, and then I give it a criteria. So I say there's a clear need to grow. They have capital to grow, and they have triggered to act now. Okay, so if they fulfill these 3, then you give me a higher score. If they don't, give me a lower score. So for example, if they are hiring for GTM roles and showing expansion signals, it should be a 0.8. If their team size 30 plus, and there's like a lot of things going on, in this case, give me a score, right, of 0.9. Higher the better, or higher the more, there's a higher chance that we work with them. So then I get a total score, which is a combination of all these 3 factors. So trigger to act now, capital to grow, and clear need to grow. Because you have to bear in mind that there's effort, sacrifice, and inertia involved in any purchase decision. And they're not obstacles, or they're not objections, they're obstacles if you can clear them before the sale, before you say the price. So this is something I've learned from Alex Harmozy, that A lot of us focus on objection handling, but objections when you've told them the price and then they don't see the value yet, and then you're trying to handle it, right? But obstacles are something that you speak before you anchor the price, because then they already feel so sold into what you do that price is just a factor, like they're just going to pay it, right? Because they understand the value all the way. So that's the difference between an obstacle and an objection. An obstacle is something you clear together. An objection is something you solve, you answer back, and it's better to clear something together because they feel they're part of the team. So I love to do obstacle management rather than objection handling, because if you know what their challenges are, and if you know things like why should they act now, or why shouldn't they act now, or what's stopping them from acting now, you can clear those obstacles much easier, much earlier in your call, in your sale, right? And then once you do that, once there's a certain timing score, so in this case if the timing score is more than 2, then I go into the yes column. If timing score is no, I make them do not qualified. Now, what do I do with this do not qualified? I actually nurture them to free events. So I get a list on my Airtable, and then I invite them to my free events. And if they do qualify, then I get them into a lot more of a sales campaign where I reach out via phone, in this case via email, via LinkedIn, and it's a lot more focused on getting into a meeting. Here is a lot more focused on giving them my lead magnet, nurturing them into my event, and so on. So all of a sudden, you're not treating all prospects the same. You know who's more likely to work with you and who's less likely to work with you. Now, a lot of businesses just focus on volume. I would say when you're doing an advanced workflow, don't focus on volume initially. Focus on maybe 100 leads to get started with, and see what the output is. Are you happy with the kind of meetings you're having? Are you happy when you run an event, the kind of people that are coming there, right? And if, let's say, you do 100 emails and you do proper follow-ups, it's fair to say that you're going to get between 6 to 8 meetings. And if you get 6 to 8 meetings, you get a very good idea if this quality of this approach is right for you, and then I'd get into the next 500 and then the next 1,000. So I'd really be careful on how you expand, how you get started with your leads list, and then slowly move, slowly go out of the concentric circle. And then you have the follow-up emails from here, right? So obviously you can add more nodes in terms of voice. If I have one of my videos over here where I walk you through voice workflows, you can add those nodes over here. It's simply copy paste those nodes and you have voice as well. So all of a sudden you can do email, you can do voice, you can do LinkedIn, all in the same workflow. And you do this based on intelligence that you've actually collected about the industry, about the person, about the timing, and you bring it all together. This is one of my favorite workflows I've built because it does fantastic results. So when you look at some of the best campaigns I've run, they work because either the offer is really clear or I've really nailed why they should work, why this prospect should work with me. So this is a nice segue into the next part of my video, which are the mistakes that you should avoid. So now let's assume you've picked one of the levels where you are and you know how to do it, right? So before I go into the mistakes, I'm also going to tell you how do you know where to get started. Let's say you've been watching this video, you think this is great, but you're not sure. Should you go with the starter? Should you go with the intermediate? You feel a little confused. Here's a quick guide that can help you sort yourself. So I would recommend you to start with the starter if you don't have enough leads. So you're having issues getting enough leads, you're unclear about your ICP or niche, or you're a solo founder or stretched resources. So you're just getting started with AI and you don't have a lot of time and you don't have enough leads. So if you don't have enough leads, the first thing you need to do is to get enough leads. Don't worry about enriching. Don't worry about making it perfect. You just want to speak to as many people as possible to understand what gets them to buy your service. Because if you don't have that data, it's very hard to start automating and building more complexity, right? The second workflow is you're not getting enough conversions. So you're having meetings, but not enough are converting because you have a mentality of all leads are the same. Then I would say go into the intermediate automation where you can at least start looking at LinkedIn and you're using Perplexity. You can start collecting a little bit more intelligence and see how can you sort them better. So you can put scores on different types of leads, and then you can start focusing on those that are on a higher score, so you get higher conversions. And once they get higher conversions, your machine starts moving again in 3 months, and then you can start improving that. So think of like 3-month cycles. Don't think of like 1 week cycles because you're not going to learn a lot in a week. But think of 3-month cycles, and that's at least my advice. Obviously, you can go faster if you can scale, do it. But a lot of us don't have that capacity. So I recommend you to think of 3 months. Stick with intermediate. See how the conversions are improving, and then go into the advanced where you cannot add more SDR resources. You're so overwhelmed with leads and calls and money that leads are dropping through your cracks, and you want to expand channels or products. Then I would add this. Really qualify and really focus on high prospect customers, and your best salespeople, if that's human or AI, should work at the highest chance of closing customers because they would get lots more value out of it. Now, if you want to get all my advanced voice workflows, which I've not shown you, but there's a video where I'm going to link it up here. And if you watch that video and you want that, comment voice over here in this video and I'll send that to you as well. I'll DM it to you. So you can get my voice workflows to add to the outreach via email. And finally, the bonus I have is you can actually write better emails if you follow my copywriting prompts. So I have something called the 10 commandments of copywriting, and you can find that over here again in my Gumroad. So if you go to my Gumroad over here and you download it, you have the complete prompt pack and you have the complete email pre-send checklist. So you have how do you write copy that actually works, using the curiosity ladder. So the curiosity ladder, for those that are not familiar, is you're opening up a gap between what they want to hear and what they know, and you're saying, I'm going to fill this gap for you, but you have to spend some time with me, right? Or you have to read the rest of the email. So that's the curiosity ladder, the gap that you're opening. So here, how do you do that? How do you write email that actually gets replies? And this is after all the learnings I've done. And what's the prompt framework for ChatGPT or Perplexity to really get this right? So if you just want to copy, paste, and pray, don't do this. But if you really want to get your prompting right and build it as an engine, this is a must-have, and this is a bonus I'm dropping in here. Usually I charge something for this, but it's again, you can donate whatever and get on with it. So here you can get the Google Docs, you get campaign mistakes to catch, which is the checklist, and you get the fill in the blank prompt system. So you're literally filling in blanks and the prompts keep getting completed, and you can just copy paste that into your favorite AI tool. So there's no excuses to not try this, because I know it can be overwhelming for a lot of us to get started, but I really want to make it simple for you that there are no excuses for you to take one of my basic or any workflow, get my prompts over here, put it in, and start putting this in action, right? Now, let me come back here and show you some of the common mistakes before we end the video with some common mistakes. So the first thing is to spray and pray at scale. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that is that you're just going after volume. And especially if you're new to this, you're just getting started with outbound, or you've done some outbound, but you've not done AI-driven outbound, don't try to spray and pray. Instead, start with a very targeted leads list. Really qualify them. Really make sure that you are, you've checked their emails and start bouncing, and then build your first set of workflows and go from there. The second mistake I see is that the ask or the offer is not clear. I get messages on LinkedIn asking me to jump on a call, but I don't know why. Like, why should I spend 30 minutes with you, right? So be outside in and not inside out. And one of the things that is in my prompt pack is a framework for that, for writing better copy that is more outside in. And I use a framework based on Samantha's work over here, which I really like, which is what's in it for me, that's reading the email, basically. So you want to make sure that it's not about you, it's about them. And the ask or the offer is so clear that it's a no-brainer for them to, give you the next step. Don't automate unproven workflows. And this is, again, people that are just in it for the sake of automation. It's not going to work if you're just automating for the sake of it, and you're automating things that have not worked, right? The fourth mistake is bounce and deliverability. So it's very easy to overlook deliverability issues. As I showed you, we had some bounce issues here with one of the campaigns, and deliverability is the other side of the coin, which is that you've either not checked the email addresses, or your email health score is pretty poor. And I have a video, I'm going to link it up here, where you can check all this with tools, but Instantly does a fantastic job as well. You can they have everything set up for you over here, and it's very easy for you to go in and see, okay, if you look at all my email accounts, what is the status over here? And then you can see whether they have any errors or not, right? And you can also test your domain setup here, so you can see, all my records have been set up properly. So it's MX, SPF, DKIM, DMARC. These all sound overwhelming. You just have to follow a checklist and you're done. You have to do it once and it's done. And if you're spamming people, the scores go down. And when the scores go down, you start coming up in the spam filter, and you're not in the inbox anymore. That's why your health score is pretty important. You want it to be as high as possible. And follow-ups. This is something that puzzles me. So I know a lot of people that spend a lot of time setting up systems like this, and then they don't follow up, which is weird. Because if you don't follow up, you're not going to get the sale. So my suggestion of follow-up is you do one email and then at least three emails in the next 10 days, depending on what you're selling, obviously. And then you have a follow-up structure again in a month, and again in 3 months, and again in 6 months, and again in 12 months. And don't underestimate how people's life changes over this time. So even if your lead said no or didn't reply 3 months ago, showing up again is a great idea. The second part of the follow-up is when somebody replies, whether they reply saying, no, I don't want to hear from you, take them out of your list, or if they reply saying, thank you, this sounds interesting, please reply fast. Because if you reply a week later, the lead is gone. Bear in mind, this is the cold channel, most likely, right? This is the least trusted channel. So you want to reply, you want to be on your feet. You want to show that you're ready to win their trust, because once you win their trust, moving them from cold to warm, and then you have time to, explore more. So when they reply, just make sure you reply as fast as possible. Instantly has unified inbox, which makes life easier because you can just go in and reply as if you're working through one inbox, but it has all your emails associated with it. So here you can see that I have different email addresses. So for every domain that I send an email, I have 3 email addresses. Again, I have a video explaining all this in the basic setup, but just make sure you get the infrastructure right. So this is in theory. These automations are running right now in my own businesses, in some of my friends' businesses, and lots of other solo founders, agency owners, and early adopters are on the train. The best part about what I just showed you is that with a little bit of effort, this whole pipeline is yours. You keep control of your sales, you keep control of your funnel, you build your own destiny, and you're not stuck with an agency that is promising you leads but might not deliver. If you find all this overwhelming, there is help out there. You can find some links below where I can offer you some help. There's lots of amazing people doing work here. Don't be afraid to ask for help. But the biggest critical decision I think that is most strategic to make is whether you want to own your pipeline or whether you want to outsource your pipeline. And I believe in owning your pipeline because it's such a key part of how you build business value. So grab the templates. You'll find the links below, whether that's the starter template, the intermediate template, or the advanced template. You have the bonus with the copywriting and the prompting. Grab them in the link below and drop voice in your comment if you want my voice workflows too, okay, and I'll send it to you. Do me a favor, I'm new to the whole YouTube thing, so subscribe to my channel and share it with a colleague or a friend that you think would find this useful. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.